Welcome to the xMatters demo days. Thank you for joining us. Please share any comments, inquiries in the chat throughout today's presentation. We'd love to hear where you're from, what you're interested in or intrigued, or what intrigued you about this webinar, or anything else you'd like to share. We'll tackle the questions towards the end. So a quick disclaimer before we begin, this session is intended for customers or prospective customers of Dynatrace or xMatters. It is subject to all published fair use policies and other terms and conditions. You can always find more information on our websites. All right, I am your host. My name is Rutuja Rajwade. I'm the Partner Marketing Manager at xMatters, and with me are Eric Maxwell and Rob Jahn. Eric is a solutions architect at xMatters. Previous to xMatters, he spent 8 years at a large hardware corporation that was going through a digital transformation. He has held roles as a product manager, managing SREs, operations, implementing DevOps concept. He's worked a range of projects as well, platform transformations from on-prem to cloud, converting to containers, and implementing microservices. Rob Jahn is a DevOps advocate and technical partner manager at Dynatrace. He supports market research and shaping strategic technology partner roadmaps, and Rob also develops and leads technical workshops and is a frequent speaker and blogger. Prior to Dynatrace, Rob was a technical services director advising and building successful software, DevOps, and test automation solutions. And now that everyone is introduced, let's get into why we brought you all here. Today, we're focused on helping you meet some specific challenges when it comes to monitoring. So traditional monitoring is siloed, it isn't granular enough, or maybe you only have one piece of the puzzle, so your service and your business teams are not getting the full picture. Maybe you're having issues connecting people with data, and if I boil it down to one main point, and a common result of these types of challenges is that you're facing too much manual work. And if you're struggling to work through one of these issues, your mean time to identify, respond, or resolve is going to suffer. We're also seeing that in today's technology demonstration, we'll be addressing those very issues. What you need is observability and flexible notifications, working with innovative AI ops, and you need to leverage end-to-end automation. And that's why we're bringing xMatters and Dynatrace together. So I'll hand it over to Eric to go into a little xMatters intro, and then to Rob. Take it away.
Thanks, Rutuja. So again, the xMatters platform, again, we call it the service reliability platform. We're here to help build remarkable customer experiences, right? Helping you build those experiences, automating and reducing things like toil, MTTR, helping you to rapidly iterate with confidence. And of course, in that, protecting against service issues, reducing operational pain, and of course, extending the value of your current applications, which is what we're going to go into today. So I'll pass it on to Rob here.
All right, here we go. How about that? Hi, guys. Yes, I'm from Dynatrace, as I was introduced, and very, very happy to represent Dynatrace because there's a lot of companies out there. As you can see, from some of our logos, we're very, very focused on enterprise customers that put a lot of trust in us, and we're really helping them, bring observability, their operations, as well as their DevOps delivery of software to a whole nother level. And a lot of our analysts, as you can see, have rated us very high in the industry. And we're really growing, and as a public company, really excited to show what we can do together with our partners today. So if you want to click the next slide, I'll walk a little bit through our platform. So first thing I want to get across and communicate is just that Dynatrace is a platform. So we're more than just an application monitoring tool. We were really specifically built for monitoring applications on premise and in the cloud, and also doing that in a multi-cloud way. So we're obviously taking in metrics and logs and traces from the underlying infrastructure, but it goes up to the applications and into the user experience level. And that's what we do this through a number of technologies, from our pure path technology, which is creating a distributed trace across it, but also embracing the open standards and open telemetry, which we have a big hand in driving that standard and supporting that standard. And then we're also able to bring in cloud metrics from the hyperscalers. And then we're also exposing all of this data model as well as an API to then integrate in with great products like xMatters. So we're excited today as we get into our demo, showing kind of the ability to shift right and shift left, as kind of this picture shows, in a module of Dynatrace, which is called the Cloud Automation Solution. So it's made up of a couple components, as we call it. So starting on the top right, part of Dynatrace is the automatic detection of the application versions that are running in your environment, such as Kubernetes, containers and versions, things like that, able to understand and analyze what's running in what environment where. And then that ties into things like the delivery of software. So as we're pushing code, we see what's happening. We're able to look at the automatic measuring of service level objectives as we're doing it. And then when we get into an operation mode, the big thing at Dynatrace is we take this topology model, all the traces, all the automatic collection of data, and feed it into an AI engine. So our AI engine, which we're going to demo today, is really detecting problems automatically. We're not setting, fixed threshold for things. It's automatically determining that there's a problem. What are the dependencies? What's the impact? And then feeding it into an incident management workflow to say, hey, this is the affected component. This is where it is. Can we automatically look at the service levels when we remediate an issue? And that's kind of the whole idea of this infinite loop. So if you want to maybe go to the next slide, we're going to drill into this specific aspect of service level objectives. And this can be applied both in the delivery of software, as well as kind of validations of releases. And it really starts with two components. So we've driven a lot of what we've done on what's called the SRE handbook from Google. If you guys have seen that, search it, it's available. And they've broken things into two basic categories: service level indicators, which are really the individual metrics that you see here as examples, like whether it's response time, failure rates, or it could be architectural metrics like database connections. It could also be business metric like conversion rates. So as we do a service level objective, that's really the score that you want to evaluate the indicator against. So in this example, I want maybe a certain threshold for response time. And I want to break that into a passing score, maybe just a warning. So if we go through an example, what the idea is that we collect data. If you want to hit one more click on the slide, that'd be great. We collect data and we want to give it evaluate it against an overall score. So then as we iterate through this, if you want to click one more time, if you don't mind. Imagine this is a build, or what we're going to do in the case of the demo today. We're not doing software builds and pushes in a pipeline. What we're doing as another use case is that we have a problem. We want to verify against our objectives. We want to remediate a problem and see if it got resolved. So these different examples you see here are kind of how the idea of automatic scoring would take place. We would collect data, measure it against our objective, and then ultimately calculate a bottom line score of what we're doing. So if we're in a passing status, then things are good, right? If it's a warning, maybe we do something, maybe we don't. But if it's if it's violating a key metric or an overall score, then that's where we want to escalate it up and really have to deal with it. So how we do it in Dynatrace, which is the next slide, is really how we implement it. So Dynatrace started off with, and you'll hear an open source project that we actually demoed in our last demo days, which is called Captain. But now Dynatrace is offering this as a commercial offering under the umbrella of cloud automation to then do this SLO evaluation. So the idea is that we can define these service level indicators and service level objectives I just described in a codified way, so it can be managed as code. And that's the whole idea. We're going to check it in with a code, manage it in a GitOps way, have full auditability of it. And then the idea is that it's abstracted. So if the data comes from Dynatrace or maybe Prometheus or load testing tools or other tools, the concept is the data comes from the indicators, the scores get evaluated in a common way. And then if you click a couple more animations here, the idea, just as I described below, each tool would pull the data, you score it, and then you get your ultimate score. So you're going to see a lot of that with Eric. And so with that, I'll actually maybe a good segue to Eric, who can talk about what we're going to demo today.
All right. So today in our demo, we actually have an application running. It's running in a Kubernetes cluster for this demo, and it has various services in it. You'll see there we have a front end with 2 or 3 services behind it. And in the demo, I'm going to I've actually already done it, enabled a new feature, which is going to cause an issue in the order service, which then also affects that front end service. This will be detected by Dynatrace, and Dynatrace is actually then going to send a notification to xMatters with this information that we're going to use, and you'll see how we take that and then automate our incident process. And then we'll have some remediation at the end that will solve that issue for us. And again, some more automation between Dynatrace and xMatters. So we're going to be using what we call Flow Designer, and I'll go through that in the demo some. But again, Dynatrace will be sending this problem information or notification to xMatters. We'll get a notification, and that notification will have various responses here that will allow us to do different actions. But in there, we'll be interacting with xMatters incident management, but also with Slack. So we'll be posting information, keeping people up to date on what's going on in Slack. And then as Rob was talking about, we'll also interact with cloud automation to get some of this SLI, SLO, how things are going with the service before and after the update. Yep. And of course, as we're doing this, we're also pushing information into Dynatrace around comments and events and things that are in deployment and things like that are happening. And we'll be pushing those things into Dynatrace, which we'll show as well.
Right. And I'll just comment on that, Eric, is like, that's really, what automation is about. It's really integrating tools together that you use already. So it's really getting, leveraging the tools, leveraging your communications. And so with Flow Designer, we have, these specific examples, but you're certainly not limited to, if you're not a Slack user, you use Teams, for example. The idea is that we're integrating tools to kind of automate the business processes that you want to do. And we're ultimately trying to optimize it so that the mean time to resolution as a result is coming from improved communications, and leveraging the strengths of each of the tools to do their job in your ecosystem.
Thanks, Rob. All right. So like I said, Dynatrace in the demo, I've kicked that off. There's an issue with our application and it has picked up on that issue and there's a problem now. But before I go into that problem, I wanted to go through a few pieces and Rob will probably want to interject some as well. First, I wanted to start out with the dashboards. We were talking about cloud automation and the SLIs and SLOs. In this case, we actually have the quality gates and things defined in a dashboard for us. And so actually, so cloud automation is pulling that from our dashboard, which would be this one, right? So I don't know if there's any other, if I've missed something on this, Rob, on this section, but.
No, that's great. I mean, I think we're going to dig a lot into this today. But yeah, what Eric was in was the Dynatrace UI. So, really, this is where, we really expect a whole team to be able to in this tool. So the idea is that dev and ops are working from the same set of metrics, the same set of tools. And so what Eric is showing is, the UI. And as mentioned, as we get into our service levels, in this case, Dynatrace, as mentioned, has a lot of metrics. So we're pulling metrics related to performance, response time, errors, defining that within Dynatrace. And then what the cloud automation solution is doing, when we'll get into more details, it will be using the API to pull out this time series data that you see in these graphs, and then automatically score that, and then determine what's happening. And then the application that we're looking, and I'll let Eric kind of get into it, but we'll kind of showcase how Dynatrace is actually monitoring the application as we go through too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to move on before we go into the services, just so you can see kind of what we're monitoring here. So our application has 4 services. You guys saw that in the slides, and we see that I had pushed an update to our order service, which has caused a problem that we also see in our front end service here. If I go into, well, actually, I should probably just go to the problem, but here's our service. We can see that the failure rate, in this case, it's a failure rate, but typically we're not going to start here. We would start probably from a problem, and that's where we're going to go. And so Dynatrace has detected, this issue. It's come with a problem, but it's actually using its information, the service observability and mapping that it has, that it's discovered. It knows that, okay, yeah, there's a problem with the order service in the front end service, but it actually knows that, hey, it's actually probably the order service that's actually causing this issue. So we can see that here in our problem, right? And we can actually go in and get further information about this. If Rob wants to talk about this more in detail.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go back real quick, Eric, just to explain, this is something that's what makes Dynatrace different. And on the problem card. So we call this a problem card. So what, maybe some of the monitoring tools you may have, as I was mentioning, may be looking at one aspect of your application, like the response time of the end user, or maybe the CPU of a host. And when that tool detects an anomaly or a problem or a threshold violated, it would probably send you an alert, and then from that, and then you may get alerts, multiple alerts for some problem. There's CPU problem, there's, response time problems, availability. So you're getting a slew of alerts. What Dynatrace is doing is putting all that into one problem card. So this is a window of time, and you really have a dashboard of a problem window that's taking place. And this is dynamically being updated. And so it's determining through the AI, through the dependency mapping, it started off with an order problem with response time. And then it's like, oh, well, now it's also happening on the front end. Oh, the front end is being used by these users. So we can see impacted services. We can see the impacted users, what functions they were using. And then built into the AI engine is a very large cause and effect engine that goes through a set of rules to determine the root cause. So in this case, it's pinpointed it to the root cause infecting all these users is this order service. And with that, and this is going to be a segue to Eric now. So now with that, we will send an alert based on a problem with a whole bunch of information that can now inform the workflow in Flow Designer. So maybe that's a good segue. So as it comes from Dynatrace from this problem card, and we'll refer to this as the problem, but this is the information that then goes as a notification over to xMatters.
All right. Yep. So before we leave the problem card, I wanted to come down and you'll actually see where xMatters, the flow has actually been kicked off, and xMatters is already pushing information into the problem card. So we'll see here that xMatters did create an incident, and then it started notifying the on-call, right? So you can see that it's been escalating because I haven't responded, but I'll actually be acting as Kevin here, but it has been escalating through, and we've been actually adding that to our problem card. The other piece, we took that information from Dynatrace, we posted it into Slack, and I'll actually show this in a moment, but you'll also see that we've added some other information here, the cloud automation evaluation. So we can also see here in our notification, this is where the alert came in that, hey, in this case, it's a critical incident, and we'll show that in a moment in the flow. It went ahead and created an incident for us, and it actually also created a channel for this incident so that we can pull everyone together into one location to collaborate on this one incident. So I could, we're in here, we could be in here, I see some log errors, whatever it is, right? Or we could post log messages, file, whatever it is we see, and we're collaborating, right? So we've done all these things, but finally, after it's created all these resources and grabbed this information for us, I get a notification. So it used information. So we talked about the root cause entity and the impacted services and things. So that root cause we use to determine who needs to be notified in this case, who needs to be notified. For that root cause service, the order service, I know that Kevin was on call. He was the primary, but we saw it was escalating because I hadn't responded yet. But we got this notification. So first off, here's the incident that was created automatically for us. There's that Slack channel, so I can go directly into that Slack channel from here. And there's that information, that problem information from Dynatrace, right? So we have all the problem information here. We have links into our problem, and we also have links into that cloud automation evaluation as well.
Yeah.
So again, I'm using the xMatters app here, but the notification can go to email. We could also send to SMS or voice. Obviously, SMS and voice you wouldn't include all this information in there, but it is possible. I have several options. The first one is to accept. Now, before I go into it, the options, again, just like the message, is customizable. You can have whatever options you want, and we can back those up with various workflows, which I'll show in just a moment. So I'm actually going to accept it. And this is actually going to do two things for us. The first thing is it's going to let xMatters know, hey, you can stop escalating. And but it's also going to trigger a path for us, which is going to start going out and pushing some more updates out. So if I actually go back to our problem, I should start to see, I think I'll refresh it to make it faster. We'll see some updates into the comments, not yet, but here it is. So I have it in Slack. So I accepted Kevin accepted the incident. Let's go back to the problem, see what's going on. Should be up there. It goes. So Kevin accepted the incident. So we're updating the comments, right? In the problem, but also if I go into the service details, we'll see that we also created what was called an info event into this service, which actually also let us know that, hey, if I'm looking at the service, I can see that, hey, there was an incident opened at, I can see the history of these, of the events for this service. And I can see that there was an incident open at some point, and I have access or a link directly to it. So I could go check that out. but that's also pushed to our front end service since it was also impacted by this same incident, right? So it's all tied together. So I don't know if Rob, you had any?
Yeah, no, I mean, just maybe I'll recap sort of what's been happening here. So we remember we had the problem in Dynatrace, and I think Eric's going to dive into the xMatters UI in a minute. But what happened is that problem notification basically was a webhook into starting a workflow. And so what that workflow logic, and he'll show you how it all works, but it said, hey, here's a problem from Dynatrace. It determined based on its criticality that I need to open up an xMatters incident. So when that incident got made, which is sort of that URL you see on the screen, there is an incident now within xMatters. As part of the logic he's configured in the flow, it's like, okay, when an incident got made, I want to do a couple things. One, I want to open, do what he just showed a second ago, make a dedicated Slack channel for that incident so that the team working on that particular incident immediately has some collaboration abilities right there within Slack, because that may be the tool they use. But on the ops side, perhaps maybe someone's monitoring the environment, all these comments and information events going into the Dynatrace side also inform the people that may be living in the Dynatrace side. So now you have real visibility for all the team members, within every product that they may be using. And that's the whole idea, that we're kind of gluing everything together, letting everyone see the same information, having it all real time. And it's really all made possible through the APIs, which are really easy to call. And that's what's through Flow Designer. So through these integrations that Eric will probably dive into shortly to show you how it actually all got done. But the idea is that we're opening up an incident flow, we're starting to collaborate on it. And then as he's going to walk now is really resolving that issue. And then hopefully, all the teams, also get those updates that people are on it, and it will get resolved, and then problem goes away.
Yep. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
And so, and as he said, I'm actually going to go back to our notification here, and I do have a response option here to push an update. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this again is going to kick off a workflow in xMatters. That's one's going to actually, we'd pushed that, or we had enabled a feature in our service. It's actually going to go out and disable that feature because it's obviously causing us some problems. And we're going to do, again, some more updates within Slack and Dynatrace. So you'll see here, it's letting us know that, hey, Kevin requested this. There was some replies that, okay, now it's complete. Let me jump over
even right there, Eric, I'll just pause you for a second. So if you,
go ahead.
Maybe you didn't notice that, but what he's showing on the right is a simulator of a mobile app. So xMatters, you can go into a web UI, which he'll show, but this is actually showing you what would be on his iPhone or Android phone for what people on call or on the ops team could have. And that's what's really great, right? So we're synchronizing all these tools. So if someone's, out in the cafeteria getting a cup of coffee and they're right on their mobile app, they're seeing this and they can respond. And just by clicking on this app, the integration of Flow Designer to these other tools like Slack now broadcasts that out to everybody. So someone could be working on their phone, someone could be working on Slack, someone could be working in Dynatrace, and now we're all collaborating across tools. And that's really cool. That's what we really wanted to showcase. It's not just the use case, but really, all these tools, and how easy it is to integrate them all together.
Exactly. We want to notify the right people. We want to pull the right people together and let them work in the tools that they are familiar with.
Right. We want to eliminate the alert. So hopefully Dynatrace eliminates the number of alerts, but then what Eric's going to show is that with that metadata that got passed, now you can really route it in an intelligent way and not bother people that don't need to be bothered about a problem.
So I was actually going to show real quick while we were at it in here. And part of that, we had that custom event about the incident, but we actually, this is another feature within Dynatrace, and I've actually pushed this from xMatters. It could be pushed from like your CI/CD pipeline, but we've actually let Dynatrace, hey, no, there's a new deployment event for this service. So we deployed a new version, or maybe made an update, whatever that was, but we can, have various information here about that deployment.
Exactly, right. And that's kind of what, that infinity loop I was saying. So the reason, there is an incident is maybe someone just did a release. And if you inform the tools that, releases are taking place, then, may not be the root cause, but it can certainly help, if nothing else happened and then, 1 minute before we started having problems, you knew who did the release and from what tool they did the release, you can immediately track down, that team and see what's up. In this case, for our example, we did a deployment and that caused the problem. And then basically we're going to, Eric, that's for our demo. We said, hey, remediate this problem all through xMatters, workflow. Say, hey, let's roll this bad release back. And that's kind of what he's going to show.
Yeah. And this is also, I just wanted to point out too, when we post that, we have it in our release details as well. So you see that deployment there as well. So,
right.
Yep.
Right. Exactly right. So this is that release inventory I was mentioning earlier. So again, please ask us questions along the way. I think we're going to try to get through the demo, and then we'd love to hear questions, and we can go back and dive into anything that you have a question or follow up. So yeah, please encourage you. Please ask us questions in the chat, and we'll take a cue from you guys as well.
Yeah. So as Rob had mentioned earlier, I'll go into how xMatters kind of glues these things together. So as far as coming from Dynatrace, that's sending us this notification, this alert about the new problem or resolved problem that comes in here to what we call a trigger in our Flow Designer. So Flow Designer is our low code orchestration tool that we use to tie all our integrations and logic together. First thing I'm doing is just taking the severity from the Dynatrace problem and mapping that into xMatters severity. Then we're actually looking at what type of notification it is. There's 3 basic types. A test is basically when you're configuring the connection. There's a way to send a test message. I'm not actually doing anything with that. We have a clear. So that's when Dynatrace lets us know that the problem is resolved. And then of course, when there is a new problem, how we're going to handle that. So in this case, I actually have several steps here. I'm actually querying Dynatrace. So it sends a lot of information in the payload about the problem when it alerts us about it, but there was a few details I wanted to grab. So I actually have a step here to go out and query Dynatrace to get those extra details about the problem that I'm using. And then this is where we ask Cloud Automation to run that evaluation for us. We're posting that information into that alerts channel. Now we're taking that severity and we're making a decision now. And so I have the decision here is just either if it's critical or not critical. So let's just look at the not critical real quick. In that case, it would just send us a notification about that alert, right? And then we have various responses. So these are those responses that would be in the notification. You'll see that they were kind of similar to what I had in my notification, but one of those is to initiate an incident. So in this case, I might want to triage before I create an incident. But in our case, it was actually a critical incident. So I bypassed this and it actually went straight to creating an incident for us. So it created our incident. This is where we started pushing those updates and comments and the info events into Dynatrace, creating that incident channel and posting information into Slack. And then again, we're making a decision on the severity. I could take a different path. So if it was a non-critical incident, this is where I'm actually sending that notification out. So here you could just kind of see the difference. If this is a low priority incident, then I have this option. So and also the message content and things can be different in those, but we'll see here, I have a critical incident. So you can kind of see here with responses that it's slightly different in the workflows. So I did that accept, and this is where we did those updates of the incident. And actually, I never did actually show the incident, which would be useful, I guess. So let's see here. Let me jump to that incident real quick, just so you can see it. It's probably resolved now. I think it's probably already resolved. Let's see. Nope, it's still in progress. So this is where it created that incident for us automatically. When I took or I accepted the incident, it actually made Kevin, well, I was Kevin at the time, he became the incident commander, and you can see where the app team 1, they're the ones responsible for this order service. So we use that root cause order information to determine which team needs to be notified. And so using our service catalog, we knew that the app team 1 was responsible for that order service. So we notified them, and Kevin was the one on call, and he was the one that responded as engaged. And we also put it in progress. And there you can see that Slack channel that we created as well for the incident. So we kind of tie all these things together into the incident and make it easy to read or find all the resources related to this incident.
Yeah. Yeah, it really, working with Eric on this, it's, as he said, your workflows can be modeled, and that's the whole point of the flow designer, right? So we're, there is, you have these components to construct, based on this, I want to work with this team or notify that. So it's very easy to just adjust the workflow to implement, how you want to the metadata to be used to route it. So you can really start simple, right? It could initially you start what Eric has is a few kind of scenarios kind of modeled in this flow from dealing with different types of alerts and things like that. But you can certainly, right? I mean, tell me, Eric, how you can start simple, and then as you get more,
definitely,
expand it and add more logic, then more complex scenarios can also be modeled as kind of what you're showing here.
Right, exactly. This is a complex one. This is actually one that got, we kept building on. It's very easy to add on. So yeah, you would probably not start out with a flow like this. You would start out something much smaller, where it's just you receive a signal, maybe you create an incident and send a notification, and that's all you do, right? And maybe you have an accept and reject, I'm going to stick that incident. But as you build, so this one actually kept growing. Rob and I were working on it. He was like, "Oh, it'd be great. Could we actually post in, an info event? Could we post in a deployment event?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, we could do that." So let me just add these steps. So it's just drag and drop.
Maybe show them like little details of one of the steps, like add the problem comment. Maybe that's a simple example.
Yeah. So adding a problem comment. So we actually pull the ID from the notification that we get. So it sends the problem ID to us. So that's what we need to update it. So Dynatrace knows what problem we want to apply the comment to, the API key that we need, or token that we need to actually access the API. And then of course our notification. And you'll see here that it's kind of a combination of text and what we call pills. And so these are just information from our over here. So I have the root cause entity. So I actually just came over to, I think it was when I did the get problem. And so I just drug this over into our step, right? And so it can be a combination of dynamic data and static text.
Right. Yeah, so you can see, it can be very easy to construct these steps and the logic, and that's the whole point, right, Eric? I mean, you really want to make it simple, easy to maintain. But if you want to go more sophisticated, you certainly can, right? You can drill into writing, logic within, through like a script inside of one of these steps, which is more advanced use case.
Yes, you can create your own steps. You can even take the steps that we have and copy them and modify them to maybe your specific use case.
Right. But the goal is that everyone's, that we standardize these workflows. So, that's the whole, the power of it, right? If you make it data driven, you put the guardrails in for how you want your teams to respond to incidents as well, or approval processes. And then it makes it really easy to now integrate all these tools together. So, configuring the Slack, I mean, I don't know, maybe show them the Slack one. That's pretty easy too.
Yeah, Slack's pretty easy. This is the posted channel. So I just drag it over. You'll see that I just take the channel name. So actually there was a previous step for creating the channel, and I pulled the channel name out. So it outputs the channel name for me. My message, again, I'm just pasting, or I have some mix of static and dynamic data. I actually wanted it to be a thread. So when I posted the previous message, I took the thread timestamp, and that way you saw in Slack how it shows that there's like a reply. That's how I do that. There's various other things you can set if you want. If you wanted to change what the username, it shows icons and emojis and attachments and things like that. Or if you're using block formatting, right? So you can go as simple or as complex as you want. And the idea between workflow designers to build that consistency, right? That consistency. So it's, you're following the same process every time and it's consistent, but it's also flexible because our processes change over time. We see issues, we want to update them, maybe our efficiency issues and things, and we want to go, okay, well, we'd rather do this. So it just makes it really easy to update that process as well. So we were waiting on that problem to be, we deployed that update to our service. This is where we push that out. We actually did, just before we go, I will show, we'll get a clear event from, or what we call a clear event, but it's the problem resolved notification from Dynatrace. We're going to follow several steps here where we update our incident, right? The status and things will actually set it to resolved. We're actually asked for another evaluation. We're posting information into Slack, adding notes to our incident. But actually, when our incident goes into a resolve state, we can actually trigger things based on the status and severity of changes of our incidents as well. So when it went to resolve state, I'm doing some cleanup here. I post a notification or a comment in the problem to say that the incident was closed as well. I'm actually pulling that Slack conversation, and then I'll post that into my incident notes, and I will actually archive the channel. So actually that probably should already be done. So yeah, our channel is gone. And actually, if I go down here, we'll see that we had a message that it was archived. So it was archived. And then if I actually go into the problem, we'll should see that up down. Yeah,
there we go. Yep.
So obviously it is
right.
Resolved.
So Dynatrace problem and incident are two different things, right? So we have a problem.
Yep.
And you know, and that's the idea that in this case we've programmed it so that as the problem got cleared, we actually resolved our incident, but then the full audit history of everything that took place is within you know, within the incident itself.
Yep. So we have all that incident information we see. We can see here the front end service still has some incident open, something else.
But maybe while you're there, maybe it's a good segue. Maybe the last thing we can show is that service level piece, right? So maybe if you want to show, we can kind of just just a little bit more.
Yeah. So as far as, we have our service catalog.
Yeah.
So you'll see here that we've got the various services defined, right? So here was that order service. And so when that came in, that's Dynatrace let us know that order service was the root cause. We use that information to use our catalog, and then we notified the app team one. So that's where I was going into that. You can also see other information here. Like you can see the front end service also has another incident open against it as well.
But see, this is great. See, like this is where we're leveraging, you know, xMatters to, you know, control the teams, right? So Dynatrace knows the you know, the application and the dependencies. But, you know, we're letting, you know, xMatters, you know, route it, right? Because that's what it does best, right? So it can, you know, through the service catalog, you're basically mapping services to app team owners, and that's really what's going to dictate your, you know, how they get notified, escalations, you know, support teams, and all that stuff, right? Right, Eric?
Yep.
That's the idea.
That is the idea. And one last thing around the services is we do have you know, it will actually let you know if Dynatrace, if we're using those and we put those in as impacted services here, and there's one that we don't have in our catalog, it would actually show here. And I should have added that to the demo, but you would see here that, hey, it would let you know that, hey, we saw this service from Dynatrace, but we don't have it in the catalog. So we don't know what team is responsible, things like that, right? So you can add that to your catalog.
Exactly.
All right. So I think, you know, our incident's all resolved here. I'm not going to go into all the detail on our incident. Again, we could check out our YouTube channel. We have more demos and ones around adaptive incident management, so you can check those out. I think, Rob, you guys have YouTube channels.
Oh, absolutely.
To check out other demos and things.
Yeah. And the idea is right. The idea is like, you know, as working the issue, you know, there's a lot more data that you know, maybe you would go over into the Dynatrace side and triage, you know, what's happening and understand other things in the environment. You know, that may be affecting it. You can analyze it. You can drill into the code views and dependencies of other apps, and that's really all part of that triage process. So, right.
So I think that brings us, everything's resolved. So brings us to the end of our demo.
All right.
So we saw a little quick, well, kind of quick demo of how Dynatrace and xMatters can work together to help make your incident and even your, you know, shifting left, your development processes more efficient. So I'm going to pass it back over to Rutuja. I think we have some questions, and she's got a few other things to go over.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So we do have a couple questions. So first, how long does it take to set up all those the steps in the design flow is the first question. It's a two-part. And then the second part of the question is there a way to append custom code within design flow to kick off a custom workflow process if it's not available within Designer or Flow Designer?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned that in the discussion. So first off, to start off, where I talked about that flow was pretty complex, we actually have templates within workflow designer, and there actually is a Dynatrace template that will start you off. It has the integration. It will have the basic flow there for you, so you can send it and get notifications pretty quickly within just a few minutes. So setting up takes just a few minutes. If you do have custom things that you want to integrate with, it's pretty common, proprietary type applications and things, or maybe something we don't have. As long as it has an API, you can create a step. Our steps are written in JavaScript. So basically you can think of a step as kind of a function. So it has inputs and outputs. So you input data, you have some function, right? And then it'll output whatever data you want to output. And that could be passed on to other steps. So, yeah.
Awesome. So xMatters and Dynatrace deliver. An additional benefit here is that we believe in extending the value of existing applications that you use every day. And those tools can work together as a wonderful complement. Here's a compelling example from Experian. So Experian is a mutual customer of ours. And they are a consumer credit reporting agency that aggregates information on over 1 billion people. At a glance, they have 16,000 employees in over 39 countries, around 12,000 clients in 80 countries, and Experian unlocks the power of data to improve lives for their customers. Now, imagine if there was some sort of unresolved incident that would prevent Experian's business from operating. It would be difficult to serve their customers or keep consumers like you and me from getting the services that we need. And so by combining the power of xMatters and Dynatrace solutions with other existing tools, Experian is able to deliver solutions together to unlock the power of data that ultimately delivers a whole new level of insight. So some of the benefits of integrating Dynatrace with xMatters is that Dynatrace AI provides all of the relevant events in a single view. You can get contextual information to the correct person and then use the integration to have all of the information from your monitoring or from your systems at your fingertips for rapid mean time to resolution. You can also ensure that services are available to your clients and customers, since customer service really is kind of what we're all going for. Exceptional customer service at the end of the day. Also, remember when I mentioned the challenge of manual work was at the top of today's session, a major benefit for Experian is that their engineers aren't wasting time gathering data. Instead, those skilled resources are performing higher value roles and resolving issues quicker. And that is the kind of success that we want to get to you. So there's some questions from me for Rob and Eric. So the first question is, what data in Dynatrace can you trigger an xMatters alert off of? And this one's for Eric.
I guess it would be a combination, but pretty much anything that Dynatrace finds an alerts on, they can trigger a flow within xMatters. Right?
Yeah, right.
So,
So Dynatrace, what we showed today was, the AI engine automatically detecting anomalies and sending that over. Dynatrace also does have the ability. So there's sometimes where you do want to set a custom alert off of metrics. So for example, Dynatrace, as I mentioned, has, we didn't get into all the details of Dynatrace, but Dynatrace is monitoring what we call the full stack. So we start often with an agent-based technology that's installed on a host. So any host level metrics could be something that is the cause of a problem. But as you go up into the application stack, your Kubernetes, pods contentions, for example, then you would go up into the end user experience, end user experience problems. But then we can also derive a lot of metrics in Dynatrace from analysis of the code. So we can see, for example, the dollar amount of a shopping cart, or a dollar amount, if we're looking Experian, maybe a certain transaction volume or conversion rate or something is going down, and that could be the cause of a problem as well. So we really are covering everything from infrastructure to the applications to the end user to business, can all be considered a problem and feed that into a workflow.
Great. And then a question for the both of you. You demoed the cloud automation or the SLO evaluation with the response option. What could I do if I wanted to automate that, or if I wanted it to automatically run?
Right. Yeah. So Dynatrace has two concepts. So SLOs are, when you think of SLOs, that's a built-in feature of Dynatrace to be able to define a service level objective, again, from any of these metrics. So if I wanted an availability service level, it's, non-available time divided by available time, or failure rates, or even business metrics. So if there's a conversion rate service level objective, all those can be constructed by the thousands of metrics that are in Dynatrace. So each of those can be established as a unit of itself. And we also have a feature which we'd like to know today, really about an SLO budget. So if you think of if I need to have only 10 minutes of downtime in a given month, making that up, I just had an incident, but I was only down for 2 minutes. I really have 8 more minutes left within my month to kind of still be within my SLO budget. So in Dynatrace, we're having the concept of budgets against your SLOs, as well as being able to construct an SLO for anything. What we did here was more of a real-time inquiry to say, hey, for this window of say, a performance test in a delivery of software, or in the last 5 minutes, let me just really quickly calculate, and that's what Eric demoed, like an SLO kind of real-time inquiry. So we have sort of real-time inquiry, as well as kind of continued dashboard and budgeting, all kind of in the concept of SLOs, but it could be, again, against any metric on any level.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for that awesome demo. And before we, let everyone go, both Dynatrace and xMatters offer the ability to experience your platforms for yourselves. So you can get xMatters for free by signing up at that link, or sign up for Dynatrace at the other link provided there. Remember, we have more webinars in the horizon, several each month. So be sure to visit xmatters.com/demo days to see a complete list of upcoming webinars. You can also follow us on social. So you'll see some of those handles there that you can hit follow on, and you can, follow on your channel of choice. We post often, and connect with us if you have any questions there as well. Great. Well, this concludes today's session. So have a wonderful day.